without even thinking about it. So when we start talking about politics, people have different interests. You know, you got people that feel that proximity to power, that they feel better about a Barack Obama or about a Kamala Harris. But then you got people that's going to be fucked no matter who's in office. And that's a different perspective that you got to respect if you care. So, you know, again, first and foremost, I'm glad this many people showed up. I think the conversation is good. I think it's good that we don't agree, because we can learn from all these perspectives. You know, I personally, I'm not voting for Biden and Harris, and I'm not voting for Trump. And again, I understand if y'all don't like it, and that's cool. And just like I'm cool with y'all putting Biden and Harris in office if that's what y'all want to do. But these politicians don't give a damn about us right now. They want to pacify us as quickly as they can, because when they can't win the war, they win the peace. What that means is they prepare themselves for us to fuck shit up, and then they prepare themselves to pacify us and calm us down. Look at your history. Go back to the 60s. All this shit happened before. National Guard been in the hood before. The riots that happened before. We done went far left before. We done put a fucking middle of the road motherfucker in office before. We've been here, literally. We've been doing this the whole time we've been here. So if we ever want to stop, we got to look at where we made mistakes in the past. And maybe we're not all going to do that at the same time, but some of us have to start thinking differently and doing things differently, you know, or else we're going to do the same shit. And we don't have a reason to believe that they're going to do anything differently than they have before. We have no reason to believe that the Democrats are going to give a damn about us. We have no reason to think that. But we like to think that, you know, because it's good for us mentally, because we get fucked so much every day. We try to find shit to look forward to. But the Democrats don't give a damn about us. The black ones, the white ones, the lesbians, the gays, the Latinos, none of them. They give a fuck about Wall Street. And that's easily shown. That's easily shown. And that's it. That's all I gotta say.
All right, appreciate you, Lifestyle. Ms. Jacob, would you like to chime in?
Thank you.
Yes, I would. Thank you so much. Number one, I apologize for being late, guys. My name is Ife Jacobs. I'm here in St. Louis, but I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I have a little bit of a different perspective, although I share a lot of the same feelings. But again, being born and raised in LA, my dad was very much prominent in the Black Power movement during the 70s. He studied under Malcolm X. He studied under Stokely. He and Maulana Karenga worked together to create the US organization. So my family, or at least my dad and my mom, have been very, very political. And I have not been as political. I've always been watchful, but not always as vocal as they have been. Couple of things that I definitely agree with. I agree, as a whole, Democrats are not looking out for us. However, I believe they have more of our interest at heart. And although we have a job as the people to do, and we don't do that. We believe once we vote somebody in, that's it. That's the extent of our involvement. And what we complain about and what we see other people do is they're constantly putting that pressure on the people in office that we voted in to get them to do stuff. And that is part of our job. When we don't, we have to continue to keep that pressure on our elected officials, or else they're not going to pay attention. And I don't even think that it's to be rude. I don't think that it's being dismissive. I think the people that make the most noise are the ones that get the attention, right? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And we squeak when it gets to election time, and then they pay us some attention. And then once we stop squeaking, we're no longer at the top of the list. So we, as the voters, as the people who vote these people in, have we still have a responsibility that we're not filling. We believe that all we need to do is vote, and then that's it, and they'll do everything that we want them to do. And that is not, in fact, how it's going to work. We have to continue to make noise and keep pressure on them. That's number one. Number two, we have to get to a point or a place of a mindset of cooperative economics. part of the issues, and I constantly have these discussions or heated debates with people all the time who want to talk about what to do to fix the problem instead, and they're not looking at the root cause of the problem. If anybody knows anything, either from being military or from being corporate, you know that in order to fix a problem, you have to look at the root cause. You don't fix the surface. You don't take care of the symptoms. You have to get to the bottom of the issue. And the bottom of the issue for a lot of the issues that we have within the Black community are economic. Even for some of the white folks, and I'm not going to exclude them. I'm talking about us specifically, but socioeconomically, we have less power than most other people, and therefore we cannot utilize the resources that we should be able to utilize in order to get the attention that we need, and also to do the work within our communities. We can make a lot of changes within our communities ourselves, but again, the bottom line is the socioeconomic piece. We've got to have the people that have the money, and we've got to be able to get the community to buy into it. Right now, people are so disenfranchised. They're so kind of over the whole everything that they don't even see. They don't see the light. They don't see a positive future where those of us who are in certain spaces could possibly see that. And we see it because we see it in other communities, but they're not introduced to it. And when we're not in the midst of it, we, as those of us who tend to be more upwardly mobile, miss out. We assume that, hey, if we're moving up, everybody else is moving up like we are. And if they're not moving up, it's because they don't want to, without looking at the fact that, no, some of this stuff that has been ingrained in them from the beginning. They've never seen places where we can actually move and grow and do good things. They only see pockets of us. And so us coming together again as an electorate, as the voters, as the people, we have that responsibility to do that within our communities, because that's how we start things. And we always tell people, you have to vote from starting at the local level. And I have this debate with my brothers all the time who say, I'm only voting locally because it doesn't make any difference who's in the White House. And now I say to them, now are you looking at what we got in the White House because you felt like, oh, it doesn't matter? And it trickles down to us. People don't realize how that person in the White House actually does trickle down and affects us, even though we need to vote locally. And again, that has to be something that's really pushed. The other thing that as I was hearing people, we need to make these spaces so that, because we are clearly, those that are on here are clearly educated. And I'm not talking about educated from a degree standpoint. I'm talking about educated about what's going on. It's great for us to have these discussions, but we've got to educate those who don't have it. There's so many people out here that, especially now, because conspiracy theories are the thing, right? We know that there's so many things that are out there that people who are already disenfranchised, it's easy for them to buy into. We look at the number of people that Trump has following them. I don't blame Trump for where we are. I blame him. What I say is, people were already bubbling up to this, and all he did was make it okay for them to say the things that they wanted to say and to have the feelings that they wanted to have. With that comes, okay, now there's all these things that we can believe, and whatever he puts out there, oh yeah, that sounds exactly right. That sounds like all the things that could be happening. As Black people, we have less of a reason to trust the government than anybody when we look at all the things that the government has done, has sanctioned, has allowed, from Cuba to the Tuskegee experiment to so many other things that have affected us directly. Yet we have all these, we've got all these people now who could make a difference, who are choosing not to because they feel as if it's all a joke, and no matter what we do, nothing is going to change. Or the government is out to get everybody, and it's not just Black folks that are looking at this, it's white folks as well. back to then move into leadership. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm trying to like hurry up and get everything out so that other people have a chance. Back to I believe Brother Eddie was talking about leadership. Absolutely, leadership is everything. Barack was not perfect. I love my president. I think he was great, but I realize he is not perfect. No one is perfect. We're never going to get the perfect candidate in the White House. We're never going to get anybody that's going to do 100% of what we want. And that's okay because we can't have it that way. That's not how life works. But leadership matters. What people put out there matters. We know that if you have a leader that's in a position of if you have a true leader in position of power, what they're going to do is work to make sure that if not everybody is happy, at least most people are happy. There's some kind of compromise. We learn all the things that we've learned from elementary school to middle school to high school. We're watching the leader of the free world now toss all of that. Oh, somebody talks about me, so I had to talk about them back. Oh, they did this to me, so I had to do that. And we know in real life, that's not how it works. You don't get to tell your boss, oh, well, so-and-so did it, so I did it as well. That doesn't fly because there's no, we're all about accountability, and he doesn't take any accountability. I was willing to give him the chance when he first got in and to say, maybe he will be able to do something. Maybe, all that stuff he was talking on the campaign trail was just, smoke and mirrors. But I had my doubts, but I wanted to at least give him a try. And he quickly showed us that he is not what we need. And again, while Biden and Harris were absolutely not my first, second, or third choice, I'm choosing to stand behind them because the only way that we won't even have an opportunity to have a say if Trump is back in the office. Again, people are cutting their noses off to spite their faces, and I respect everybody's opinion. Everybody has been very articulate and not been condescending towards anyone. They stated their case, but I still feel like those who are choosing not to vote for the Democratic Party are cutting their nose off to spite their face because they're angry with the Democratic Party for not doing what we want them to do. And the bottom line is, again, we have more of a chance to make some change and to hold their feet to the fire. Again, people make mistakes all the time. We're human. Nobody is perfect. But when you can say, look, shit happens, right? There are unintended consequences to everything. Again, I agree with Brother Eddie. The 94 crime bill, it wasn't just Joe Biden. There were a lot of black politicians. My godmother is Maxine Waters. Everybody was voting for that because at the time something needed to be done. Some people were yelling, hey, this is not going to be good. But as a whole, black folks were saying, we need something to happen to fix this. And we were okay with it at the time until we started seeing how it affected us. So again, we have to look at everything and how we play a part in this as well. We cannot put everything on the politicians because they're going to politic. That's their job. It's our job to make sure that we're holding them accountable. There are a lot of things Barack could have done, but we stopped. When we voted him in, we didn't do anything else, and then we left him handicapped. We basically said, go out there and fix everything, then handcuffed him and put him in a chair and said, don't move, because we didn't give him the support that he needed in order to be able to get things done. And that is what we've got to do from grassroots. We've got to make sure that we're in places here in local state elections that are making sure that we're doing or that we're getting people that are going to represent what we're looking for. Okay, I know I said a lot. I'm sorry.
It's all good. I guess I got my little two-piece, and then I'll see if anybody else. Oh, wait a minute. Anybody else want to speak? Then we're going to go back around. I guess, man, my thing is with this election, I've never had my stress level be as high as it's been for this election. And I don't understand. I just can't fathom why I allow myself to get so stressed out this go around. You know what I'm saying? Even when George W. Bush got elected in the office for 2 terms, I mean, I was a little upset, but I dealt with it. But this go around, it's like it's hard on me, you know, because I've been voting for a long time. I've been voting since '92, since I was 18. Since I voted for Bill Clinton to get in office. Uh, I've never missed any election, even when I was in the Army, when I was deployed. I've never missed an election. And I just like, I made a statement that I don't know if I might even involve myself with the election this year, and people was all in the uproar or whatnot. But it's like, I feel this way about the left and I feel this way about the right. So how do I make the best decision? Yeah, I need Trump out of all. We all, well, most of us can agree that we feel like Trump has been doing his due diligence as a leader for this country. But at the same time, when you look at this Biden Harris, for me, it's like the Democrats have been playing with the black vote for years, you know what I'm saying? And they figure that, you know what I'm saying, well, it's a shoe-in. We'll just do enough to get the black votes. And then once the smoke cleared and if the Democrat is in office, it's like we get forgot about. So I think more so that's what upsets me the most about this political process, you know what I'm saying? Right now, that's where I'm at with it, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm not going to vote. I'm not saying I am going to vote. It's just I got some decisions and some soul searching for this election. I ain't going to lie, because I don't have faith that whoever get in office this time around is still going to do anything for us, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm at with it, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm right, I'm not saying I'm wrong, I'm just letting you know that's why I'm at with it. But I got some people that want to come back around and speak, but I want to make sure that if you haven't spoke yet, give you the opportunity now to speak if you want to add to the conversation. If not, we're going to go back around because I got some people that's ready to chime back in. So let me see. Cindy, you haven't spoke. DeWarren, Poncho, and Kave. If you any of you guys want to speak before we go back around?
No,
Okay.
I'm cool. I'm really just here to learn more than anything. And then here, you know, my stance still stands. I don't rock with either candidate. I'm sorry, I just won't. You know, it's the same analogy as what I told people to begin with. I wouldn't I wouldn't trust my kids to be around someone who assaults children. So why would I leave a legislator who has been corrupt in a lot of instances on both sides, leaving them up to legislation? So that's just always been my point. But I'm here to learn, to hear from different standpoints, so maybe I can learn something.
All right, then. Well, with that being said, I guess we're gonna go back around. I'm gonna give Montega the floor again, because I know he want to chime in. Then after Montega, we're gonna go with Ryan, and then Paul. Then we'll take it from there after those three. So Montega, then Ryan, and then Paul. So the floor is you got the floor, Montega.
Okay, keep me tight on time. I think first thing I wanted to do was like, I heard defund the police like come up a couple times, and got to name it like that. That's my squad. So I want to name one, like the roots of where that came from and what it's meant to be and do. So defund the police literally came about in part because, like in Ferguson, and I'm gonna name like where we were when Ferguson happened to everybody here. Like locally, the most radical thing folks were talking about, outside of obviously like occupying police stations and shit like that, was a police oversight board. And then came body cameras. And then came all this other stuff that would never actually hold a police officer accountable for killing a black person. And we saw the same thing happening around the country. Like literally, defund the police came out as a freedom dream for folks that are actually doing this work on the ground. And the first way we articulated it was divest from the stuff that's actually hurting us, invest in the things that actually work for us. So with police explicitly, we began to recognize that in cities like St. Louis, sometimes you have like upwards of 50% of the budget going into policing. And police are not saving lives. Police are not actually keeping us safe. The things that actually keep us safe and actually keep violence down are not being invested in. And that's mental health services, is actually addressing poverty, is actually addressing homelessness, is actually addressing the crisis around jobs in the community. But those things in St. Louis, like if you look at public health, that's less than 1% of the budget. So the conversation was not just defund the police, but defund the police and invest in Black communities. Now, it's important to recognize that as a freedom dream marker, because if we actually look at the last phase of movement, like in the 50s and 60s, like literally 60 to 80% of Black folks were not for Black people sitting at lunch counters. They weren't for them actually running to vote in places where they were actually getting restricted. Like they were literally in opposition of it. So like the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Act came because people literally had to move the line on the way that we were actually thinking about freedom. And that's where defund the police came. It's like thinking about a world where our safety is not actually rooted in being policed and policing each other. It's actually creating conditions for Black folks to thrive and creating a different kind of safety where we're not actually literally at the butt of a gun. Now, with that being recognized, like the other thing like I want to name is like in 2014, like one thing we had to sit with is like in St. Louis, like we actually live in a violent community. So we were actually knocking on doors and talking to people. They were actually explicitly saying they wanted more police because they didn't feel safe. And we didn't have a right response to that. Like for us to actually learn and be able to iterate and create stuff, like the movement that's happened over the last 6 years has actually transformed the landscape, not only for those folks that's actually acting in movement space, but now like we actually seeing stats that I ain't gonna lie, it almost knocked me on my ass when I saw more than 50% of Black folks actually rocking with movement and rocking with the line defund the police because they actually got it and they see what it means for their lives. So, I mean, I know it feels a certain kind of way when you hear it, and especially if you're talking like in policy circles, it lands in a different kind of way. But like if you actually see the way it's touching down, like in cities like Austin, like they've already been doing this for a minute. Minneapolis is actually making this real, but we also have to hold the fact that Minneapolis is not St. Louis, and the politics in those cities is not going to play out in the same way that it's going to play out here. So I mean, we can bounce that around a bit. The last thing I want to make a note around is like this analysis of like this political moment. For me, like when we talk about Donald Trump, when I think about Trump's base, I'm legit thinking about Jeff Rutter. I'm legit thinking about these same police who literally are kettling and spraying people on the front line. I'm thinking about the Border Patrol folks that are actually literally snatching kids away from parents and okay with them literally sitting in a corner in their own feces and sick. Like those are the people that are lining up behind it. So when I'm thinking strategically about what I want to do in November, like Lifestyle's right. Like there's no Democrat that's for us. There's no Republican that's for us. They're all literally owned by Wall Street. But I'm also thinking that the person who actually is sitting in the executive seat of power is actually owned by white nationalists right now. And that means something strategically for how we're going to be able to move, both in terms of our personal security and in terms of like the way that our movements are going to be able to move after November. So that's my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you, Montega. So I'm going to go in. Ryan, it's on you, Ryan.
Yeah, since we on the subject of, I just want to touch base. I'm going to get around to back to defund the police, but I just want to touch base. A lot of what I'm hearing, it's just a lot of, virtue signaling for real. Nobody elected Donald Trump to be our friend. Nobody elected Donald Trump to be likable. It's a bonus if you have a president that's, debonair and suave, seems like a cool dude you can hang out with, play basketball with, invite the hip hop artists to the Oval Office. Yeah, that's all good and cool, but that's all fluff. I'm hearing a lot of emotional, oh, I don't like him because he seems like he's a white nationalist, or he seems like he's racist, or he says this and he says that. Man, it's about policy. Regardless of how you feel about him or what you think about what he says or his tweets, or because politics is simply war without guns. Politics is war. It's a war of words. So him tweeting somebody who tweets something about him, that's not out the spectrum of politics. It's actually pretty savvy, if you ask me. He's the first president I ever seen use Twitter like that. In this social media day and age. It's pretty savvy on his end. He's able to get his message out there directly to a lot of people at one time. It's smart, So you can't really sit up there and say, oh, this what we shouldn't be seeing this out of a president, because we didn't elect him to be likable. We elected him to do a job. So what we need to be arguing, rather than his words or how he makes us feel or what he says to trigger us or stress us out, what policy has he implemented that has hurt our community. That's the main thing we need to be talking about is his legislation that he passes. What legislation has he passed that has put a detriment to our community or made things worse off than they've already been decades before he even ran, was even thought of running? You know, we can argue all day about he said grab him by this, touch him by that, but what is he actually doing to our community that is harming us? Nothing that I can think of. You know, regardless of what it may seem like he's saying or how we interpret what he's saying or how he may come off, the policy and the legislation that he has implemented in the past 4 years hasn't done anything but help our community. It's easier to open a business now. You know, he's retracted laws and legislation that made it harder for Black people to open businesses. You know what I'm saying? He's a businessman. And, you know, you can say, oh, he's failed. And ain't a businessman in the world or entrepreneur in the world that hasn't failed at one thing or another when it comes to business. You don't get it right 100% of the time. So him failing at this or this business winner, that has no bearing on anything. That's business.
He failed
you know?
a lot. Not just one or twice. He failed a lot.
But he's also, but you know, you got to think when you that big of, when you on that scale of a businessman, you're gonna have a lot of losses, but you're also gonna have a lot of wins as well. You know, and we can't take that away. You know, you look at the unemployment rate since he's been in office, especially in the Black community. Unemployment before COVID, the economy was booming. Everybody was working. You know, everybody was making money. People were buying houses. People were buying cars. You know, that's what I saw. Everybody was eating, you know. And then here comes China, you know, and we've been at a trade war with China. You know, he's been over there. When he was the first president to go to North Korea and talk to them, you know, he's been over in China trying to get everything straightened up with them. And you know, we've been in a trade war with China. And if the deal ain't good, the deal is not good. He's not going to go with it. He's a businessman, first and foremost. You got to remember that. So, you know, China, they see our economy doing good. He's putting tariffs on China, you know, then boom, here come the Wu flu. You know, it's all to sabotage this country and to bring the country down economically, because people like the George Soroses of the world and the Clintons of the world, they don't want this man in office either because he's not a politician. He was never in politics. He was an enigma. He went up against the Bushes in 2016 and slapped him, made him look stupid, Went up there against, made Jeb Bush look like a little boy. All these career, you know, politicians that we used to hearing these big names in politics, Hillary Clinton, Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, all these, man, he went up there and slaughtered them all. You know why? Because he tells it like it is. He tells it like it is. He's not a career politician. He's not a cookie cut politician. I'm polished. I'm going to say whatever I want to say. I'm going to say whatever in front of the crowd to please this particular crowd that I'm talking in front of. He's not that kind of person. He's real. What you see is what you get when you look at Donald Trump. There's no facade. There's no ulterior motive. You know, what you see is what you get. You know, these other politicians, they get in front of a crowd. Hillary Clinton on the Breakfast Club talking about she carry hot sauce in her purse. Come on now. What, you ain't never heard Donald Trump pander to no crowd. He's him regardless of what crowd he's speaking in front of. He don't mince words. He's true to himself. He says what he feels. And that's what you need when you want, when you speak.
No, he does a lot of pandering, bro.
That's what you need. You know, all these Joe Biden get up there. Joe Biden went in front of a Black church and said, you know what, they gonna put y'all back in chains. He went on Charlemagne Breakfast Club. If you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. He went on another radio show, asked the brother, the Black reporter, are you a junkie? When the brother asked him about his cognitive dissonance, he got offended, said, come on, man, what are you? Are you a junkie? You know, this is the best they got. This is the best they got. You know, the man can barely form a sentence. The man barely knows where he's at. You know, and then they try to throw Kamala Harris in there to appease Black people. She ain't even Black. She Indian. The girl, she went on the girl from The Office. What's the Indian girl from The Office? Mindy. She was on her show. He went on her show talking about, yeah, I'm Indian. Ain't say nothing about no Black nothing. And they're making Indian food. She talking about she grew up with an Indian family, Indian granddaddy. She's all the way Indian. Ain't nothing Black about her. But then go stand up at Howard University and say, I was born Black and I'ma die Black. Girl, if you don't get on with all that.
Hey, Ron, let me ask you, can I ask you a question, brother?
We need to be smarter than this. We need to be smarter than this now. Ain't no policy that Donald Trump has implemented that has hurt the black community. All he's done is all the policies he's enacted from the First Step Act. You can say what you want about the First Step Act. We got to start somewhere. That's why it's called the first step. You got to start somewhere, and it's helped. It's helped our community.
Can I ask you a question, brother?
Giving all this money to these HBCUs, it's not been done nothing but help our community. You know, what policy has he implemented that has been detrimental to the black community? That's why he said, when he told black people, what do you have to lose? What was wrong with that? What do we have to lose? We've been under all these Democrats, Bill Clinton, Obama, for that whole span, we've been voting for Democrats and all these Democrats. St. Louis, I can't remember last time St. Louis had a Republican mayor, you know, and look at the state St. Louis has been in for decades. You know, ain't nothing got better. So what do you have to lose by trying something new?
So let me ask you this.
I understand why people got offended by that.
Let me ask you this.
It's policy, man. Let's argue policy, not emotions.
Okay, so let's talk about this. And I'm gonna get to you, Paul. I'm gonna get to you, and I wasn't gonna chime in. I want to ask Ryan a question. Do you think he mishandled the whole COVID situation in the pandemic in the United States? Because hold on, let me finish, bro.
Go ahead, bro.
Because at first, when it was in Europe and it was overseas or whatever, he was telling people they need not to worry about it, this, that, and the other. We don't have nothing to worry about. And then months later, oh, if you do this, you do that, you know what I'm saying? Now it's a pandemic. But at first he was saying we had nothing to worry about. Now, mind you, a couple years back, Obama had spoke about what in the event of a pandemic, what need to be done and the steps that we need to take now to either prevent or kind of manage pandemics in this country. And
COVID-19 was on page 8 of the playbook. He specifically had COVID-19 in his playbook.
Oh yeah.
So, but what I'm asking you is, do you think that Trump mismanaged how the United States dealt with COVID in the early stages, you know, before it got widespread in the United States?
I think China mismanaged it.
No.
We got to all remember, Trump didn't invent this flu. Trump didn't invent this. This didn't come from Trump. This came from China. China let it get out of control. What Trump did back in late January, early February was he banned travel of U.S. officials and high priority people from China to America. He banned that. People said it was bigoted. The liberal media went on a rampage about that. They said, "Oh, that's bigoted. You can't do that. You can't ban Asians from coming over here. You can't do that." Nancy Pelosi was on the news in the Asian festival in February, telling people there's nothing to worry about. Come down here to the Asian festival in New York. Everybody's having a great time. There's nothing to worry about. Donald Trump's actions are deplorable. How dare he ban travel of U.S. officials back and forth to China? How dare he? Now, if he would have banned all travel from all over, people would have said he was crazy. They would have, how dare he? Because at the time, nobody knew how serious it was back in January, February. So when he
they did because they saw the numbers. They actually saw the numbers. They actually saw the number. I didn't mean to cut you off, but they actually saw the numbers from China, Turkey, Italy. They saw all these numbers. So they already knew it was those numbers were drastic. So, hold on.
Italy has a very old population. The average age in Italy, I believe, is 75, 80 years old. You know, there's a lot of old blood, old money in Italy. So of course they're going to have higher cases because people there are older. Their immune systems aren't as, you know, able to fight off certain infections and disease. So of course Italy and places like that are going to have higher cases. You know, you look at places in Arab countries, you know, they've been wearing masks for thousands of years. The women been wearing masks on their face for that same mask we wearing now. Even they have cases over there. So we can't say that, it's Trump's fault and it was mismanaged. Steps were taken, but sometimes it ain't enough. Sometimes it ain't enough. You got to do what you can. Not to say, I don't know about Obama's pandemic plan. I got to read into that more, but it ain't like Trump just sat there and sat on his hands like people want to make it seem like.
But he did. Is it? Don't you think it's irresponsible to tell this country that you have nothing to worry about when it came to the pandemic, when it came to
He never,
COVID-19? Because he said he's them his words now, them his words.
That's
He
exactly
said
Nancy
what Trump
Pelosi
did,
said
sat
the
on
same
his
thing.
hands.
Nancy Pelosi was saying the same thing. Chuck Schumer was saying the same thing. Everybody, Democrats and Republicans, always saying the same thing. Don't worry about it. It'll go away. You know, they all dropped the ball, if you ask me. Could have been dealt with better, yes, but that's not a make or break situation for me as far as him being around, because COVID, that's all over the world. So we can't sit up here and act like, oh, this is solely on him. He destroyed the world, because it wasn't his choice to close down bars and put people out of work and have people out of work. 16 million people on unemployment. That's all Democrats' policies and legislation that they passed, that they came up with. And we entertained that for a while. Everybody got their a lot of people got their $1,200, you know what I'm saying? But at some point you got to get back to work. And then when he wanted to reopen the economy, people lost their minds when he wanted to do that. They said, no, it's too early. It's too early. It's going to be a spike. It's too early, and yet what we supposed to do? Just sit here and throw money at the problem? Because at the end, when we throwing all this money at the problem, the money's coming out our pocket. It's going to come back and bite us in the ass. Just like all these people that want, like Kamala Harris, she wants Medicaid for all people, Medicaid for everybody. She wants to end private health care as a whole. Man, who going to pay for that? Us. Our kids going to have to pay for that, and then that's going to raise taxes. You look at Chicago, $16 for a pack of cigarettes. I went to Chicago a month ago, paid $16 for a pack of cigarettes just because the taxes are so damn high.
No, actually, that's the cost of cigarettes. Because Chicago is one of those cities, a big city. First and foremost, they always been high when it comes to cigarettes, bro.
Yeah.
Like if you go to New York, if you go to California,
that's why people are leaving Illinois.
But it's the cost of living, though.
The cost of living is too high. The taxes, when you got the taxes. Donald Trump, he want to cut payroll tax. People talking about it's coming out of Social Security. Man, Nancy Pelosi moved money out of Social Security to fund bail for the protesters. Nobody said anything about that. When it fits people's agenda, then it's okay. But when they feel like, oh, I don't like this person, I feel like I don't like what he represent. If that person do it, then it's a problem. But the person who, when it fits their narrative and fits their agenda, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? What it is, like I said, it's just bringing back to my point. You got to argue policy. We may not agree on COVID. We may not agree on what he says and how he says things and his rhetoric and how it comes across. Because I ain't never heard him say nothing racist. Especially about black people. He never said nothing racist about us. He never did nothing. He ain't never passed legislation that specifically targets our community and makes things detrimental. But you got these Democrats on TV that are screaming defund the police and posting it all on their websites and on Netflix. You got defund the police and all this stuff. All these and then in all these cities where these Democratic mayors are believing in this and going along with this, you got the most crime. You got the most crime. You got the most poverty. In all these cities where they want to defund police and cater to these protesters, you got looting, you got anarchy, you got all kind of stuff going on. You got police getting shot and killed. David Dorn, you look at over TV. You got to argue policy. What policies has he implemented that have hurt our community? If somebody can tell me one policy is passed since president that has harmed the black community, I'll recant my vote this November.
So you don't think that his dealing with Obamacare is detrimental to our community?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to ask
you should have the right to choose your doctor. You should have the right to choose what plan works for you. I don't believe in Medicaid. I believe in letting I believe in capitalism, where you put out a product or a service and you let the people determine what's the best service. I don't want government telling me what kind of health care I can have and who I'm supposed to go see as my doctor. I want the choice. I want to be able to look at this plan, that plan, and pick and say, this is the plan that fits me. I want private health care.
But isn't it true that you have to have the option of health care in order to make a choice?
What doctor's going to turn you away if you come in there with a gunshot wound or something
I mean,
serious.
they're
You come in the
obligated.
hospital
The
stabbed and you ain't got
emergency room is
insurance. What doctor gonna
obligated.
turn you away and say, "Oh,
That's
well,
not
I
what
can't
I
stitch
asked
you up because you leaking blood all on the floor"? What doctor's gonna turn you away?
But
I mean,
they're not necessarily going to treat you. They
they're
just got to
legally
stabilize,
obligated
make sure
to
you
treat you.
stabilize, and that's all.
And
Okay. They're gonna stitch you up. Yeah, they may not give, they may not
Breaking up,
they
bro.
might not prescribe. And then you go to Walgreens, get you some
that's a
Tylenol,
legal
sleep it off.
requirement. But here's
You
another
know,
thing. I'm gonna tell you the long-term effect of
you know,
some of the
that's what you
things
do.
some of the things that
All right.
you're describing as a this is great for our community. For instance, I know several people who have been able to, like you say, start businesses, get loans to renovate crowds,
Yeah, absolutely.
like et cetera, et cetera. It's huge.
Absolutely.
Except for the fact that we don't think about the long-term effect of that, because they're getting those loans to do that in our neighborhoods, which is basically the first stage is a gentrification, which is
Gentrification just
years
means make
down
it
the
better.
line.
Hold on, Ryan. Let him
Gentrification
speak.
means make it better. That's all it means.
That's not what the lady who owns her house, whose taxes, because her property value jumped because of the other things going on now her taxes jump $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year, and she can no longer keep her house. I understand it from your perspective as a capitalist, but if you're talking about our people, let's talk about our people. You see what I'm saying? So let's not just talk about from the capitalistic perspective. Yeah, it's great that neighborhoods values are going to go up and shit like that from an economic perspective, but it's horrible for the people who live there now, who aren't going to be able to afford to stay there, who are going to lose the one thing that they have had all of their lives because they can't afford to be there anymore, like Eddie Holman was talking about. Now all of a sudden, these opportunities again are designed, whether you want to see it in the immediate future or not, for the benefit of the white community to take shit over and to ultimately be the heads of the economy as usual. As it relates to the COVID situation that you're referring to and saying that you don't think it's his fault because that's Democrats doing this, that, the other. Well, the reality of that situation is the Democrats or whomever it was doing it on the state level was doing it because there was no national leadership who would say, hey, all y'all stay y'all ass in the house. That is what it is, because that's what they did in other countries. The heads of other countries told them, you gonna stay your ass in the house. I got a partner that live in China, and they literally put strips on their door so they could tell if they broke the seal to their door. They were stuck in the house because it was an order that came from the top. So with that, the other thing is we keep on going back to, well, Trump giving money to HBCUs. Okay, so you said have your facts together, right? So HBCU Digest, April 2018, the first two budgets from Barack's administration, the first two budgets from Trump's administration, Barack gave 1.4 billion, Trump gave 1.5 billion. Now, mind you, Barack did this while taking on the worst deficit that we've ever had in the country, and still found a way to get that money over to the HBCUs. And on the flip side, we were coming into one of the best financial situations that we've ever had when Trump took over. And he did the same thing, yeah, but let's not act like he's doing something that has not been done before. And that's not emotion, that's fact. If you want to go, it's on the internet. I don't have to go no farther than that. You know what I'm saying? So, and then there's two more things I want to say. I want to be perfectly clear that I understand, my dog. Well, three more things I want to say. And the first one is, Ryan, my dude, you sound like T.I. like a motherfucker when you be talking. Hey, I've been sitting over here like I'm sitting on the phone with Tip. But anyway, dog, what the thing I want you to understand is, from my position anyway, and I think I'm speaking for some other people on here, but I'll speak for myself on. I'm fully aware that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris don't give a fuck about me, Paul Blackman. You feel me? I'm also aware that Donald Trump or Mike Pence also don't give a fuck about me, right? So what my point is in saying all of that is that we're sitting here pointing out all of these things that the Democrats are going to do or are not going to do. And the reality of the situation is that the Republicans aren't going to do those things either. And so if you're going to weigh it like that, then you've got to put it on the even scale and say that's basically a push, because they don't give a fuck about us either, for real. Not for real. Like, everybody on here has conceded that whoever's in the White House is leading for Wall Street, correct? I mean, can I get a thumbs up if we saying it's a Wall Street thing? It ain't about the black community. It ain't about the white community. It's about the green community. They about that bread. And you got that capitalist mentality. So I feel you. I feel where you coming from. You see what I'm saying? I'm not trying to discredit nothing you saying coming from that perspective. But what I'm trying to say is, well, we holding against one, we not holding against the other. And that ain't right. That ain't right. That ain't fair, because ain't neither one of them don't give a shit about us. You see what I'm saying? And we all know that. And so I don't think anybody on this call is stupid enough to think that, oh, in the next 4 years, the world's going to turn rosy. No, it's not that at all. It's the trade-offs, dog. So yes, I don't disagree with you. There have been things that black people have benefited from through Trump's legislation and policy. But there's the trade-off. You know what I'm saying? Just like anything else, it's always a trade-off. Don't nobody get something for nothing, right? And that's the same in politics. So it's the trade-off. So at this point, what we're talking about is, yeah, it's a few of us, because in the big scheme of things, it's really only a few of us, those of us that are probably the type of people that are on this call, that are prepared and about doing some shit. You know what I'm saying? There's some of us that have been able to benefit from Trump's policy, and that is great. But the trade-off has been the worst racial relations in our country in the last 60 years. And it's because, it really is, dog. And it's because white people, racism has always existed. White people have always not liked black people. Black people have always not liked white people. But we have always found a way to, if nothing else, be discreet about it. Under his leadership, under his direction, where he is so blatantly, and you say he hasn't said anything racist, and I'm not gonna say he used the word nigga, this, that, the other, but when you sit here and tell me that the group of people in the Ku Klux Klan is a good group of folks, then you telling me all you really need to tell me. He said it was good folks on both sides. He said it was good folks on both sides. I give you that. He said it was good folks on both sides, but I guess from the perspective of a group, while you're identifying a group, a hate group, and identifying them as a good group of people, that speaks volumes.
Hey.
Come on, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, bro.
No. So what I'm saying is, you know, with Joe and Kamala, it's gonna be some shit that they gonna do that's gonna be fucked up, but the trade-off may be a little bit of change in this. And you're right, that's an emotional thing. That's not a policy thing. It's an emotional thing, but it's an emotional thing that affects everything. Everything in our country was already racist, right? Everything been racist since we've been here. And now that white people feel like it's okay to be racist, the shit has just gotten exponentially worse. So if you're not in that top whatever percent of black people, then you have gone from being at least treated with a mild amount of dignity to being treated like shit completely. And that's not policy. I agree, it's not policy, but it's the result of leadership. You can't have somebody not come out and speak on racial terms. You can't have somebody come out and not speak on matters that the whole world is talking about, except for the president. It can't be things that everybody's talking about but him, dog. His leadership's horrible. I'm done, though.
All right, appreciate you, Paul. So we're gonna go Eddie next, and then we're gonna go to Lifestyle, and then I'm gonna see if anybody else want to speak. Then I'm gonna get you back on, Ryan. So it's on you, Eddie.
Okay. So what I want to go through is something I call context and contradictions. Okay, so contradictions specifically has always been my biggest problem with the Republican Party, because they just argue on both sides of the issue with matter of convenience. So that's my specific call out to them. So we're gonna go point by point. First one being COVID. All right. So in the context, yes, the virus, as far as we know, originated in China. All right. Now, and it spread from there. We can all agree on that. But the facts would also support that, given the spread, other countries have been able to take measures to reduce the spread of that, and we haven't done that because of a lack of leadership. The numbers just bear that out. We can't deny that. The cases are there. The people are dying. They're sick. Other places not having the same problem because of the way that they're going about it, and the way we going about it with our leadership is failing. So he's got to own that. Same way people, throw that at the feet of some of the other candidates we've been talking about. With you at the top, you the head person in charge. You got to own that. All right. The contradiction is really just that they don't want to take responsibility for that. You want to call out the source of the problem and not own your own actions within it. I'm looking for a job right now because of the effects of this man's decision. I'm comfortable in our neighborhood by myself right now because of the results of this man's decisions. Okay, I'm not. My kid isn't going to go to school in a classroom right now because of the result of this man's decisions. All right. So that he's just got to own that. The second thing is we'll go to the HBCUs, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because Paul already covered it. But I'll just say this: funding or no funding, it's great to have funding in the budget towards these schools. It doesn't mean anything if the parents can't afford to send their kids to the school and pay tuition. They're gonna fail anyway if the economic situation doesn't support families being able to fund their kids going to school. Not everybody's going to school on a scholarship. Most people pay out of pocket or using loans to do that. And we can spend a whole third hour just on student loans in general. All right. So that, again, context and contradictions. As a policy, great. I'm glad he continued the Obama policy and sent that money over there. But it's not a fix-all for the situations that have been set on HBCUs. Moving on to the economy. I'm gonna just call out, me and Rob go back from our travels in the hip hop circle. So I'm gonna say that the reference to Trump being able to take credit for the current economy is like a freestyle battle. That's a debatable, bro. Like straight up. We were having economic growth lead into his term. You can't really come in there and start taking credit for it by continuing it. You can say, hey, I was able to continue it, and nobody would be able to say nothing. But if he's taking credit for it like he's the genesis of that, and everybody was doing good, that's good. Like he took care of some things. I wouldn't even say he took care. He didn't mess it up on that particular aspect. He didn't mess it up for Wall Street because that's his homies. His motivations, drove that decision. But yeah, a lot of people's 401k was better in that situation. Nobody has complaints there in that particular instance. But again, that's only some of us that have been able to crack that ceiling and be able to put ourselves in a position to have something like that and to benefit from something like that. It's a lot of people in our family or in our friends that we grew up with that don't have a 401k, don't have a job paying benefits like that. So let's not act like everybody's on the same level and treat it the same. That argument doesn't play like that. It's not, when we present it like that, it's not the proper context because it leaves a lot of people out. So the last thing, man, is just at the end of the day, like he said, he was elected to do a job. All right. If we taking it on that alone, where we're at today, where we're going to be at in a couple of months, when it's time to make that decision on whether to re-up his contract and to continue to employ him, you got to base that on his current status. And right now, my opinion, that sucks. he hasn't gotten it done. He's been able to, maybe just kind of exist in some ways. He's also, made a lot of things worse with regard to the things you're talking about emotionally. And what I would say is, to Obama's credit, at least when these situations happen, he tried to do something to address them. He'd get up on somebody's microphone, somebody's news channel, and start to say something about trying to heal that wound or trying to bring us back closer together. This guy doesn't do any of that. And I want to say one last thing. I know Lifestyle's coming up behind me. We kind of commented on it a few times about the Republicans and the Democrats not caring about us or doing anything about us. And I don't disagree with that. Politicians are going to politic, as the sister said. But are we just going to accept that as the end of that sentence, right? And the answer is no, because if we did, we wouldn't have people like Corey, who just won her election and shut down and sent, old man Scrotum and whatnot back to the seats. I shouldn't have said that, and I know you're recording this, but whatever. So, but that's the thing. Like, we just gonna have to, if we all we're gonna do is call out the wrongs, but then don't do anything about them. That's a problem. But it's also a problem if we don't recognize that we have a unique opportunity to really put ourselves, the people that we're talking about, the people that think like us, into those positions. So now we say the Democratic Party don't care about us. Are we applying that? Are we applying that to Corey and to I'm sorry, the sister's name is Kim Gardner and all these other people who we've been fighting for, supporting, and getting into office? All of a sudden, that just goes by the wayside. And I know Lifestyle will cover this for me, so I'm gonna end it off on that. But I'm just saying that's also an option, is to not only call out the injustices and hold them accountable for their past behavior, but also to remove them from the equation and put somebody like us in, and to start getting the things done that we want to see get done.
All right, thanks, Eddie. All right, Lifestyle, is on you, bro.
Yo, actually, I didn't even mean to have my hand up that long, but I got some. To be clear, I think it is important to understand that as much criticism as I have for the Democrats, that's definitely not an endorsement of, the Republicans, who have been boldly against Black people as long as I've been alive. And if you don't believe that, just listen to what they say, because they literally say it every time they speak. But I do think this is a good opportunity, hearing some of those, hearing some of the things that have been said. I think it's an opportunity, because I think in this age of social media and everything, we get hit with, propaganda all day. Literally, no matter what side you're on, you get hit with propaganda all day. So I think sometimes we have to take the opportunity to dig a little deeper, because some of this rhetoric is so effective, because they bombard us with it all the time. Like when the brother was, basically repeating a lot of Trump's talking points, I was kind of taken aback, because it's all stuff I've heard before. I've heard it all before, but I just didn't expect to hear it tonight, but I'm glad I did, because it's like, that's something we have to work on. Like, when you see these bold statements, these blanket statements, these it's propaganda. And I feel like, even if you feel strongly about whatever politician you feel strongly about, look at what the other side has to say sometimes. Look at alternative media and then make your decision, because we get hit from all angles, from the left, from the right, and it's like, it's a lot of nonsense at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, a lot of these politicians work for the same corporate interests. All of them work for the same corporate interests. But Jesus Christ, Republicans, fam? Come on. But I do think when we talk about people like Cori Bush and Kim Gardner and AOC, like, I love all of those people, and I root for all of those people, for sure. it's just the system itself is so corrupt. And when you ask about if they're going to change, man, I don't know. You know, I don't think so, and I hope not. But we still have to be students of history and see how Black politicians from my favorites, Auntie Maxine and all of them, you know, they have played us in the past. And a lot of them do what's politically expedient for them at the time for a good look after that damage has been done. And again, I love the Black women that we put in office. I love them, you know, but that doesn't change everything else, you know. And when we talk about, I'm sure somebody thought when Lacey Clay got in, they was putting a Black person in that served their interests as an example. So it's like we do that all the time. And I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying we have to consciously be vigilant of that situation and be vigilant and understand that the system in and of itself is dirty. That by the time you running for president, you're a fucking scumbag because you have to be. You know what I'm saying? So there are a lot of things that have to happen. And I also think that regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, we have to figure out the things that we need. And when we talk about racism and white supremacy and things like that, we've been in the midst of that the entire time, and that's not going to change. But what we have to look at is why and how are we vulnerable to these systems. We have to look at that because the systems are going to take a long time to break down. But man, these cops been doing the same shit our whole lives, and before that, and before that, and before that. And we go through these cycles where we hit the streets hard, we make some political moves, and then in a few years, we're back in the same cycle. So again, at whatever level you participate, you know, always do what you think is right. I encourage people to do what their conscience tells them to do. So do it, you know, but at the same time, we have to look at our vulnerabilities. When we talk about capitalism, it's like capitalism is going to always require somebody to be on the bottom. So we have to look at how capitalism perpetuates poverty because our people are poor. And entrepreneurialism is not going to save our people as a whole because all of us are not going to own our own businesses. I don't give a fuck what Dame Dash says. That's never going to happen. Everybody's not going to be a damn boss. And that's okay, you know, but we have to figure out a way. Look, we all need food. We all need clothing. We need shelter. We need education. And we need to be healthy. And I don't care what your politics are. I don't care where you live. We all need that shit, regardless of who's in office. So when I think about the people I support, I think about how they can help us to acquire those things. And if they can't, then how are we going to get those things? You know, and also I'm all for holding whoever gets in office. I'm all for holding their feet to the fire. I just want to know where the fire is and how we're going to grab their feet. Like, what is the strategy that we're going to use to do that? Because I'm all for it, but I would like for anyone who has insight into how that can be done. Let's put it in motion. Let's spread the word, and let's be prepared to do it. You know, but it's going to be a long fight. And again, you know, I think I don't usually get into political stuff with people on my social media because we're usually on the same page. But this is like the first time where I feel like some people's like, man, you know, it was getting a little tense. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I think that that's okay. That tension is not a bad thing because I know most of us want the same things. You know, we just might not all use the same methods, but we have to understand that we have to look past. I think we have to look past the two-party system because again, I feel like that both parties are playing us in the middle and we don't have, or we're not using our power efficiently. And now, if we can do that, I'm all for it. But at the same time, if somebody presents a platform that I agree with, I feel like I would rather support somebody that wants to give me what's good for the people, even if he loses, than supporting somebody that's gonna fuck us just because he's going to win and I helped him win. You know, I don't feel good about that personally. You know what I mean? But again, I understand that, you know, it's more complex than that, obviously. You know what I mean? But I think that no matter where you stand, as long as we agree on the things that we need, we can work on those things within politics and outside of politics. But we all need, you know, safety, health, education, food, clothing, and shelter. Everybody needs that. You know, so as long as we're working towards those things, I don't really care how we get it. You know, I just want us to get it. And that's it. Peace.
Appreciate it. I see Justin got his hand up. Justin, you want to chime in?
Hello, you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Where? Yeah, I took some notes from earlier. Somebody has brought up Miles Harris' record again and said, once again, it was just about her being a good prosecutor and all that, doing her job. But that's really not the case. Part of it, one of them was she was against releasing DNA evidence to exonerate a black man on death row. You know, like that. That's corrupt. That's not being a good prosecutor. That's being corrupt. And number 2 point was on Trump's First Step Act that Ryan brought up. Go deeper into that was so it did a few different things. It eased federal sentencing, reduced sentences to on average of 70 months, reduced those sentences and expanded earlier release programs. And 90% of those people who got out were, of course, African American. On that point, so people know what that was. Number 3 was people said he just kind of piggybacked on Obama's policy for HBCUs. He did continue it and all that, but he actually appropriated more. And he did a step further than that. He permanently restored the funding for those schools of $250 million annually. You know, that was a step further from what Obama had. So HBCUs had to re-up every year to reapply, but he ended that. So he said you're good. You know, you don't have to come back. You got to do it annually, 250 years every year. After that, as far as the coronavirus response, the World Health Organization said on January 14th that it wasn't successful human contact. You know, so that adds a little context on where he was. So it's only so much he could do with his knowledge. If the World Health Organization in China is important that the virus only spreads through food of eating bats and not human contact. You know, this is mid-January, January 15th. And a little bit past that, on January 22nd, was a comment where he said we're in control of the virus and all that. He would hit him to that. But on that day, we only had one case in the United States, you know, that's adding further context at that point. On January 24th, the CDC put out a message that America is low risk to the virus, you know, so it wasn't just Trump just saying who cares and all that, because he's incompetent, he doesn't care about people. It's like every health organization was undermining this virus in some regard, you know. January 28th, that's one of the health organizations. Yeah, it was on the 30th. Origin declared a global emergency. Well, you guys can do with that what you will, but yeah, that's for context on the virus. You know, moving ahead. Somebody brought up Essential Park 5. Didn't bring up Cleveland notes. His ad, he didn't actually call for the death. Generally, knowing that they didn't kill anybody, they wouldn't have had to worry about the death penalty anyway. You know, so just adding my context on that as far as Central Park 5. Moving to number point. Somebody said he said fine people on both sides. He called neo-Nazis good people. That's actually not what he said. Although it's reported like that, that's actually not. We look at the transcript, which I have right here. Excuse me a second, load up. 30 seconds. So I have the, I think somebody's gonna say it. Okay, here's right here. In the press conference, he said, excuse me, they didn't put themselves, and you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group. I saw the same pictures you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest, and you had me. I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white nationalists because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than the neo-Nazis and white nationalists, and the press treated them very unfairly. And then he moved on, talk about Antifa. Said now you had other people in the group. You had other people also who had some very fine people, but you also had troublemakers and people who were in black outfits and helmets with baseball bats. And you had other black people in that other group as well. So what he was talking about was the peaceful protesters on either side of the argument where to keep the statues up or take them down. And he specifically condemned the white nationalists and neo-Nazis and separated them. He didn't call them good people. You know, he made that very clear. That's not what he was saying. Of course, Biden, he kind of twists his words up and lied in the media also. You know. But that's the truth about what happened. And you got to look at the transcript, you see it for yourself if you don't think I'm telling the truth. And somebody brought up holding politics speak to the fire from the last point. I mean, no guaranteeing vote. You know, the Democrats, we've been guaranteeing our vote for like decades now, unfortunately, you know. And they work for votes. They work for votes, you know. And you want to don't guarantee your vote. That's one way to hold people to fire. You know, they've been kind of neglecting us for all these years. No one black people gonna vote for them. You know, you want change. You want them to listen to you and respect you. You know, don't guarantee your vote. That's it. That's all I got.
Never mind. I ain't gonna say shit.
Go ahead, man.
No, I just feel like I went through a statistics class, meaning that we basically meaning you can make statistics say anything. We talked about all of this stuff in January that, oh, he said and he was misled and he was this, that, the other. Let's talk about after countries decided to quarantine their entire countries. Let's give me some quotes about what he was saying after that, because I guarantee you they're going to say, oh, there's nothing to worry about. Oh, it's going to go away. Oh, it's not a big deal. Those are still the same things that were being said after countries had decided. I understand in January it wasn't a thing. It didn't really hit us hard until March. And so I get that type of stuff. Secondly, I wouldn't really, I personally, under any set of circumstances, I'm going to take offense to somebody saying that a person in the Ku Klux Klan or a hate group towards people, period, whether they be black people or not, to be categorized as some good folks, or there's some good folks on both sides there, that, excuse me, that's bullshit. And if you can go out and say that, then you should be able to go out and say that it was wrong for a police officer to put his knee on someone's neck for 8 minutes, which is something he still has not said. You understand what I'm saying? So to pick and choose what, oh, well, this is this and this is that and this is, and I still stand everywhere that I stand before, but I don't in the things that I've said to you, I've conceded that yes, there's some good, yes, there's some bad, and to sit here and to listen to a direct contradiction using not even really some of the same instances that I was referring to. Number one, it works for my man Ryan, but dude ain't saying nothing about policy either. So if that's the umbrella with which we're going to start having these conversations about things like that, then that I don't know, man. That's why I said I shouldn't have said nothing, because see, my personality don't really go towards politically correct all the time, dog. And I just kind of feel like Heard a bunch of excuses, which is the same thing I be hearing when I hear Trump talk, which makes me understand completely why the perspective is what it is, but that's just my opinion. So I'm gonna just stop. I've understood everything that you know. I throughout this whole conversation, like when Ryan been talking, he ain't said nothing I ain't agree with, other than Trump good. I mean, or you should vote for Trump. But as far as his points being valid and things like that, I've had a clear understanding of that, and I don't really disagree with it. I appreciate the presentation that he's given to make his point. But to come up with a bunch of irrelevant shit and try to quantify it, qualify it against things that I guess were considered relevant, and we had already said that those weren't the exact words that were used, but the point is still the same. If you're telling me that some white nationalists and some neo-Nazis or some Ku Klux Klan or whoever the hell it is, you're categorizing them as some pretty decent folks, then I have a problem with you. I do.
Well, I mean, like I said before, that's actually not what he said. If you look at the transcript of the speech, or if you watch the speech yourself, he said specifically, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white nationalists. They should be condemned totally. That's what he said. Clear as day in that same speech. You can watch for yourself. You know, the media reported wrong, but that's what he said. He condemned them. He said he's not talking about them.
The good people he was talking about were the people that were protesting on either side, the people that were there to protest the removal of the statue, and there were also historians and local historians there who also wanted to preserve the statue for historical educational purposes. They were also there in protest as well for the other side. So those were the good people
I'm not talking about the statue. So I wasn't talking about the statue removal thing, though. I was talking about when there was a Ku Klux Klan rally going on and people came to disrupt that thing. And you remember, that was before the civil. That
he
was
explicitly
before.
refused to condemn the white supremacists and neo-Nazis.
No, he didn't. He condemned them.
He
said he condemned them totally. That's what he said. Look at the speech.
He's never been in support of neo-Nazis or KKK. He's always come out and disavowed that.
I just wanted to bring up something. I know Sister Jacobs been waiting to speak, so I wanted to hear from her. But also, when Trump gave the speech, to refute these things, to get him to do that speech. He didn't just all of a sudden come and offer that up. He wasn't going off the cuff or something. So again, context. He's not just coming up and being kumbaya all the time. Every time something happens, he has to be brought to the table often, time and time again. So that has to be part of that conversation.
Unmute Miss Jacobs, man. She wanted to speak.
All right, again. So I'm home now. I got my notes in front of me. That's why I won't be rambling like I did the last time.
Miss Jacobs, can you speak up a little bit louder, please? We can barely hear you.
Sure. Hold on just a second. I'll tell you what, let me take you off of the. How about that? Can you guys hear me okay now?
Absolutely.
All right. So the gentleman was talking about policy. So I did have a couple of points that I wanted to point out on policy. Regardless of the Democrat versus Republican, there are a couple of things that we really have to think about. Number one, the people that he put in place for policy reasons they have affected us probably more so than even he has. Let's talk about Betsy DeVos, who is a woman who has never been in a public school, who has never had a public school education, yet is in power and making decisions about public school education and trying to take money away from the public schools and give them to voucher schools. Now, there are a lot of problems with that. I was born and raised again in LA. I was brought up in Los Angeles Unified School District, which is, I think, the number 2 largest, if not number 2, number 3 largest school district in the world. You're taking value. She is taking valuable resources. When we're voting for Trump, this is the other thing that we're talking about. We're talking about resources being taken away out of the the inner cities that need it the most. They already are starving on little to no funding. And now what Trump is doing policy wise is putting someone in place who is wanting to take that money away from those schools and put it into charter schools, which there's good and bad. You've got some charter schools that are doing very well and that are excellent schools, but what she's also trying to do is push more religion. I was born and raised a Christian. Right now, after seeing how some people who have call themselves Christian are supporting and caping for this man, I have completely rethought my entire religious experience, religious upbringing, as well as a lot of other things just based on more information that I'm learning. But my point is still, I want religion and state. They put in the Constitution the separation of church and state, and I think that it needs to stay that way. The way that they're trying to make it, because he's pandering to conservatives, he's trying to make everything as if it's a war on Christianity, and she's attempting to push that as well, because part of her policy is taking money from public schools to be able to put in charter schools or voucher schools, which allows people to, which is again trying to funnel children into religious school systems, number one. Number two, Supreme Court justices are another major concern at this point in time. We already are dangerously floating on a conservative majority. We cannot have that. We don't have the capital to have that, because at this point in time, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is holding on by a thread. This heifer is not going down. She is fighting it all the way through to make sure that she stays in place so that when he is out of office, she can retire. But she should have retired. This woman is supposed to be dead. Again, the point on this is policy-wise, we're talking about a woman's choice, period. I don't care religious-wise. I don't care. I get it. If you don't believe in it, that's fine. It's not your decision. You have nothing to say about that. I'm talking about a woman's right to choose. That is it. These are the things that I'm concerned about. So when I'm looking at it, again, Biden-Harris, not my ticket choice by any stroke of the imagination. I was a Bernie and a Elizabeth Warren supporter. However, I'm going with those who are going to most likely support the values that I have. I'm also looking at, again, being from LA, I was born and raised with people that were coming from Mexico, that were coming from Central America. We cannot say to these people, go back home, go back where you came from, come over here legally, if you don't even know why the fuck they're coming over here in the first place, or how they got here, or the fact that we put them in a position that is why they're coming here. See, people don't know history. They don't understand that it was partly our fault that they are in the predicament that they're in. So then you go over there, you shit on them, and you come back here, and then they try to run here for help, and then tell them you need to go back home. They're not coming. Not everybody is coming illegally. They're coming the way that they're supposed to, which is coming to the ports and submitting themselves and saying, hey, we need help. And now you're trying to turn them back and say, well, they need to stay in Mexico. Again, if you don't know, which he is obviously ignorant, this man knows nothing. Call it emotional. I'm calling it fact. This man is ignorant of any history. He doesn't know his history. All he knows is what's right in front of his face, which is what a lot of his supporters understand. They don't understand the repercussions of the acts that America has taken against other countries, which has put us in a position that we are now. Just like they don't like to think about the fact that systemic racism is in place, and part of those issues are why Black Americans are where they are at this point in time. And then I'm just going to say one more thing and then I'll be done. Again, we're talking about dreamers. So I'm coming from a place of knowing people who came here as kids. Their parents brought them over, not their fault. They came over as children. As a matter of fact, my brother's girlfriend, the mother of his child, was brought over here as a child. She is Guatemalan and El Salvadorian. She has nothing to do with that, but she works, she pays her taxes. She is a dreamer. She is praying and hoping that nothing happens. She has done everything that she's supposed to do. And we have somebody that's not putting in legislation. All he's talking about is building a motherfucking wall. That's not going to stop people from getting here who want to get here when they've got these elaborate tunnels that they're already coming from. Again, I was born and raised in LA. I know these people, and 9 times out of 10, they're doing the jobs that we don't want to do. So all that chatter about, oh, they're taking our jobs, they're not. They're taking the jobs that nobody wants to do. They're out in the fields picking strawberries. They're out in the fields picking lettuce. Nobody's wanting to do that. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Black folks ain't finna do it because it's to them, it's too much like them having to go back and pick cotton. So
Right.
these are the things when you talk about policy that I can clearly put my pinpoint and put fingers on. It's not emotion for me. It's clearly on policy. He doesn't have the knowledge to be able to adequately make decisions that for him to understand how that has a ripple effect. We do shit and it rolls downhill, and he does it and doesn't understand while he's in posturing, trying to make it seem like his dick is the biggest while he's trying to swing around all the countries like, hey, mine is the biggest and the United States is the biggest, and still failing to understand how what we do affects other countries, and the fact that no matter how large and strong we are, we did not do it on ourself. I mean, we did not do it by ourselves. We still had those other countries because we were exporting our things. That is part of how we became the power that we are. And by isolating ourselves, it will shut us down effectively. I don't care what he says. Again, he doesn't know, and I am nowhere near an expert on anything economic, but I've studied enough and know enough to know that, again, clearly his policies, you cannot run a country like you run a business, period, point blank. There are tons of reasons why you don't. But first and foremost, it's a democracy. A business is not a democracy. And this was the problem. This was the biggest concern I had about him coming in, was he was going to try to run it like he runs his business, which is bully people, take advantage of the people that are smaller than him, the small businesses. If we talk about his works as a business person, we know that he screws the people, the small business owners that he works with on a regular basis. What makes you think he would do anything less than that to the people that are here now, especially those who are so brainwashed by him that they think he's here to support them? And I am not a hardcore Democrat. I was raised that way, but I also study and learn, and I look at a lot of things, and I look at a lot of different sources. I don't care all the wonderful businesses that he has. He didn't do that on his own. He did that on his daddy's dime and on his daddy's name, and he happened to make some hit and misses. It's not because he was a great businessman. It was because he was able to leverage some of that stuff. So, all right, that's my
Hold on, Ryan.
I just want to make one more point before I go, because I'm about to have a nice evening with my wife. So I just want to say my piece, then I'm gonna go. I just want to address what the sister just said. Illegal immigration hurts our community the most. The reason why you say those are jobs that Black people won't do is because those jobs won't pay us a decent wage when they have an illegal immigrant or somebody who's here illegally getting paid under the table. They can pay that person pennies on the dollar. They can pay that person $2 an hour to pick strawberries in a field because they don't have to pay a decent wage because they know that person's illegal. Now, if I come in and I want to pick those same strawberries, you're going to have to pay me $15 an hour. So that's why illegal immigration hurts the Black community the most, is because it takes jobs away that we would otherwise do. But these people who own these plantations where they grow these strawberries, these oranges, and these apples, and these lemons, they don't have to pay the Mexicans their decent wage because they know they're illegal. And they know they can pay them under the table and they can't do anything about it. That's why. Do you honestly believe that?
But let me ask this question: do you honestly believe that Black people are going to go pick strawberries?
If you pay me enough, I will.
Okay.
If you pay me enough, I will.
But these are low wage jobs, period, in the first place.
Whether we look at it like that, it's totally different. We need to get out that mind state. A job now, especially nowadays, a job is a job, especially during this pandemic. A job is a job. You can't be like, oh, I'm too good to pick strawberries. You can't say that, oh, I'm too good to pick lemons. You can't say that and then turn around and then call yourself a provider, because you're going to do anything you need to do to provide for your family, regardless.
Right. Well, and with that thought process, that's why you got niggas out here selling weed, because you know what? I'm going to do what I need to do in order to take care of my family. And
that's illegal. Just like paying a Mexican who's not here legally under the table is illegal.
So then he needs to take care of them.
People need to come here the right way. I know Mexicans whose parents and grandparents came here the right way. If they can do it, you don't have an excuse.
But see, that's a whole different portion, and that's not necessarily the whole truth, and not understanding how it all works. So yes, there are some people who are able to do it, but not everybody is able to do it. Some people were able to do it because their families came here because of the money. Everything about America is about money. So they've taken the time, or they had family members that were sending them money so that they were able to save for it. See, that's what I'm saying. It's a whole lot more complicated than just come here like you're supposed to, because a lot of times they're coming to the border.
What Mexico needs to do is get its house in order.
They're coming to the border and they're asking for asylum. Now, this is where he's doing them wrong. He's turning them around.
Mexico needs to get its house in order. If Mexico needs to provide a prosperous environment for its people, so they don't have to run across the border.
We can't do this. We can't do it like this.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you good. You good. No, we can't have each other.
I'm gonna say this out. Mexico needs to get its act together. I know there's things that went on in Mexico that
but
cartels run Mexico. The cartels run Mexico. It's Central America as well. These governments, these socialists, look at what's going on in Venezuela. These socialist governments take all economically deplete the people to where you have uprising against Venezuela. And instead of the government in Venezuela getting its act together, they tell the people, they have George Soros pay people to come here. Go ahead, sister.
Okay. Again, my point is, America was over there. They were taken there just like they did Africa. They were raping their land, and then they left. And so they left them in a situation where you've got powers that are fighting over it. I'm not saying that they don't have responsibility for it. However, why do you blame those people? Because the same exact
I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming their
government. Let her talk. Let her talk.
Y'all are slaves, so what's the point? Y'all should, if you don't want to be a slave, why don't you just run away? Why don't you just do it the right way? It's the exact same thing. The only difference between us and them is where they were born. And the bottom line is, we helped to create the issues that they were in, and then we want to turn around and turn our back on them. It's the same thing if you look at the Iran-Contra affair. Part of that is what's going on down there. When you look at what the Iraq war, part of that was because we enabled them, because at one point in time, we were given guns to Iran, and then we turned around and decided to help Iraq, or vice versa. So we play a part in this, and then we turn around, we throw a stone and hide our hand, and then go, well, y'all need to figure it out. Sorry. And that's why I say, in my terms, I'm talking policy, because the policy is,
and that has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
But the policies that he's trying to enact are not fixing that, and that's
yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Absolutely.
Why do you think he's going over to Iran? Why do you think he ended that deal that Obama made with Iran? Because it was to fund nuclear weapons.
No, because he's trying to get the money. I watched a video of him where he talked about how they came out of there, and his exact words at the end were, but we kept the oil. Donald Trump is only about the money, and America is too. But here's the thing, you cannot have a capitalist you cannot have somebody who is doing that, who stands to profit personally. He stands to profit personally.
How can you prove that?
I'm sorry?
How can you prove that, sister?
Because he's never got rid of because he never divested himself from his companies.
He still got his hand in the pot, and people are.
So he's supposed to get rid of his companies once he becomes president? Is that a rule?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's the law.
No.
That's the law.
That law.
He's supposed to have somebody.
Show me that.
It did.
Show me that law.
Here's the thing. It helped. Now he can, when he does that, then he is not beholden to anybody. Right now, we already know
Right.
that he has,
He can't be bought.
that he took a
That's what you're
loan,
saying? Is he can't be
but he
bought?
can be. No, I'm saying,
How?
no, when you don't have any business interest, he still has his. He's
Right.
had
His business interest is the
loans
American
with,
people.
Hold on, bro.
but it's not. And that's my point. His business interest is himself. But
How?
you know what, brother? It's been nice.
How
Go
much money has he made while president?
Go enjoy your evening with your beautiful wife. And I
How
hope
much money has he made our president?
we don't know because the motherfucker won't show his damn tax return.
Does he have to?
But no, you can't
I
say.
think-
Why everybody pocket
No,
watching?
but you
Why
can't
everybody
say.
pocket
I was
watching?
gonna say,
And then I say, well, we don't know. And then he goes, well, do you have to?
So we
You
supposed to
can't
be
do
mad
that.
at this man because he made some money?
I'm not mad at anybody for making money. Get your bag. But I'm saying don't make it off of us when you have
How is he
certain
making it off of us?
information.
He
No,
just
you
gave
got
y'all.
inside
He
information
giving
that you
away money.
didn't.
oh no,
I
He just
do.
giving, he just giving away money.
No,
This man's
No,
giving away $1,200,
no,
$600.
no,
Giving
no.
it away.
Hold on,
Giving it
Eddie.
away.
Eddie, you got something you want to say,
Giving it
bro?
away.
Oh
He's
yeah,
giving it away.
yeah. I mean, this say
Hold
we
on,
just
y'all.
say.
Let me
I
let
think
Eddie
so.
talk.
We just
I'm
gonna
a
do.
tap
We do the simple math, and we just talk about, the other White House, Mar-a-Lago. Boom, he made money. I'm just saying we don't have to make this complicated. I'm just saying that the information's right there. He's there every weekend, basically, and we pay for that, and it goes into his pocket. So, I mean, that's simple. I'm looking for the link though for you, Ryan, about the law. I heard you.
Lifestyle. Say something, dog.
Send it to me, brother, if you find it.
I got you.
I'm out, y'all. Hey, peace and love. I love everybody. Everybody have a great day. We got to do this again, Rob. I
Hey,
love you, brother.
that's all I was gonna say. I'm gonna set up another one because
Okay.
I had a lot of people that wanted to come in tonight, but some forgot, some was like they couldn't do it. But yeah, I'm gonna let Lifestyle say what he's gonna say, and then we're gonna close it out for the evening.
Sister Jacobs, I love you, sister. You're beautiful. I'll talk to y'all later.
All right, Tip.
All right, brothers.
All right, peace. I think the sister made some great points. She made a lot of good points, and this conversation again. I think this is where we start, because it's becoming more and more obvious to me that a lot of us we need that political education, But before we even get there, it's so many things in our community that affect the way we think before we even get to politics, that sometimes we have to get to that. I mean, the way some people just fervently defending Trump, it's something else to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not just politics. And it's the fact that we are willing to buy into people who are obviously against our interests. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, that worries me, because I feel like the people that are left, I feel like whether we agree or not, I feel like we're operating on a certain level and that we all want similar things, but the people who advocate for their open enemy, that's something else. That's something that it's not like we were putting graphs and statistics forth. You got people that's just spewing propaganda for the most part. And that to me is the most dangerous thing, is that sometimes for the sake of being different, we'll just go all the way right and just, do something that's harmful. And I think that's something that as Black people, sometimes our main problem is, whether you're on the left or the right, is that we believe what these white people say more than they do. And I think especially when you got people that supporting Trump, it's like deep down you feel like one day you could be Trump, which is impossible for most of us, but it's the same reason that most people, even poor white people, try to associate themselves with people like Trump, is because deep down they feel like he represents them, and one day they can be in that position and they don't realize that they're being manipulated. They're absolutely being manipulated. And Trump and the Republican Party only cares about them to the extent that they know how to energize their base. They know how to get them riled up. They know how to make them think that they're getting something, so they continue to get that support.
Or how to
And and to see us operating that way, it's concerning, and sometimes it's like I'm glad to see it, because sometimes I get trapped in my own world so much that I don't realize the extent to which some of us buy into that stuff. And I just think it's dangerous. And I think that is something that, beyond party lines, just again, to me, I have a hard time listening to Trump and thinking that he's somehow on my side. Like, I have a hard time. There's nothing about Trump that appeals to me in any way. And I think that when you have Black people specifically that buy into that, I just think there's something else operating there that we need to address, because it's one thing to have political differences, but it's another thing to just blindly endorse, wealth, materialism, sexism, just the worst parts of America. You know what I mean? And it's like those things appeal to us, I guess, but it gets dangerous for Black people, because anything that hurts white people will fuck around and kill Black people. You know what I mean? So we have to be vigilant of that. But again, I can't say it enough. I think this kind of dialogue is good. And as annoying as it can be, I think it's good to get people who are all the way on the right, just to try to bring them to the middle, or just to maybe try to get them to understand that they are being manipulated, and that when people start to suffer, they're actually going to suffer the most, for supporting their open enemy. So, but I enjoyed this thoroughly. All my brothers, familiar faces and unfamiliar faces, man, I think it's really dope. And I think we should do stuff like this as much as we can, and at least start to agree on things that we want to aim for. However we get it, we just got to get it. That's all.
All right. With that being said, we're going to close this out tonight. I appreciate you all for doing this with me. I'm going to try to set up another maybe sometime in September. If you guys are interested in being part of that discussion, just let me know, which I'm pretty sure you guys are. This was great, and I appreciate all the information that was given tonight and everybody's perspective, even this perspective that I wholeheartedly agree with. I appreciate the perspective nonetheless. You guys have a safe evening.
Hey, Rob, I wanted to say one quick thing, because I don't think we covered it. I don't think anybody said the term tonight. So earlier we were going through the different bullet points and references of whether or not Trump has said certain things to prove that he is racist. And while it's true, in some of those quotes, he didn't specifically say some of the things that were called out. But if you talk about like that particular speech in Charlottesville, or even with the Central Park 5, those statements were made in reference to things that are happening at the time. So he's referencing the topic, and so he doesn't have to say the names of the people in the Central Park 5 in order to be referencing them.
It can be implied, right?
It's implied, and so it's dog whistling. That's the term that we did not say, and he's very, very, very good at doing that as a way of doing business. He dog whistles that, and even with the situation in Charlottesville, even though he did condemn after he was advised to condemn neo-Nazis and Klansmen, he was defending the people that were standing next to them. And those people made it a conscious decision to stay there when they saw who was standing next to them. So by defending them, he is, by extension, defending the people that were also standing next to them. So again, it's context. Context matters. That's all I'm saying. We have to take the whole situation. We cannot dig down and just take little bites of information and
Right.
craft them for our own narrative.
Exactly.
We'll never come together on the conversation. We just can't be like completely honest about the whole situation, own everybody's pieces in that, and then move forward from there. That's all I got, my bro.
All right.
Right.
All right, everybody. Again, you guys have yourself a safe evening. Once I figure out something in September, I'll reach out to you guys again, and we'll just take it from there. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out all the husbands getting that wife time in there, though.
I know that's right.
Hey, son.
All right, peace, y'all.
Yeah, for real.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye-bye.